Good morning, everyone. My name is Filippo Gasparin. I'm working as project manager within the life set unit of CINEA, and I am indeed delighted to present you the topic on value chain. So let me start by briefly highlight the global challenge that we are facing, which is indeed the decarbonization of the industry and service sectors. As you know, these two sectors are responsible for over 40% of the total EU final energy consumption, accounting for respectively almost 26% and 40%. In the last 15 years, the industry sector has reduced its emissions of roughly 20%, which is indeed positive. However, if we look carefully, we can see that most of the efforts were made by energy-intensive companies, which means that there is a huge amount of companies out there, mainly SMEs, that are not part of this clean energy transition. And furthermore, in order to reach a carbon neutrality by 2050, the EU industry will have to reduce its emissions to around 90-95% compared to the 1990 levels. So it is pretty evident that this challenge, this global challenge of decarbonizing the industry sector will very much endure in the years to come. So the overall aim of this topic is really to foster the market uptake of energy efficiency measures and renewables in the industry and service sectors through a closer collaboration between large companies and SMEs that are operating in the same value chain. So the idea is really to move away from a company-based approach to one toward one more, I would say, holistic one. So looking at the whole supply chain, and this is why the main objective of the topic is really to enable companies to become fully aware of the risks associated to deliver on the market technologies, products, and services that are highly energy intensive. And among these risks, we can surely find the exposure to energy price volatility, and therefore the consequent risk to transfer this cost to the final users and the users. Then we have reputational risks, so inbound and outbound products that are not purchased because they have such a negative impact, especially in an increasingly environmental friendly marketplace. And then we have risks at company level, and therefore the risk for a company to see its efforts in greening its processes to be undermined because there are companies in its supply chain that do not invest in energy efficiency measures and more in general in sustainable measures. An additional objective, which can be seen as the side effect of the main one, is about the development of benchmarks and monitoring system with regard to energy use at value chain level. So what we are looking for is really to receive proposals proving that there are viable business models that can make this collaboration happen. So the collaboration between large companies and SMEs operating in the same value chain. Therefore, applicants will be requested to develop, test, and validate innovative business models. Now, for innovative business model, we mean either to develop a completely new business model or to use a business model that already exists out there, but it has never been applied and used in this context. Then you will have to identify the relevant actors. And in this regard, besides companies, you might need additional players in order to have this collaboration in place. I have listed here a few of them, such as ISCO, municipalities, third parties, and so on. But it's really entirely up to you to check to what extent these players are relevant for your business models, or if you need additional players. Then you will have to prove how these players will generate value from the project. And applicants will be also requested to produce a business case. Of course, not a full business case, but we do expect that some of the approaches and measures will be implemented during the time frame of the project. And again, the business case will have to prove that the benefits are higher than the cost for the implementation of the energy efficiency measures and more in general of the sustainable measures. With regard to the benchmarking mechanisms and the monitoring systems, here please really focus on the energy use at the value chain level. Do not focus on greenhouse gas emissions, for which it exists already quite an extensive literature out there. And projects will be also requested to come up with recommendations in order to improve the overall policy and the regulatory framework in order to facilitate really the penetration of sustainable measures within the industry and service sectors, but also to support the monitoring of the progress of the industry and service sectors toward the achievement of the Green Deal objectives. So this is a list of KPIs that we will ask you to quantify already at proposal stage. Of course, things can change during the implementation phase of the project, no doubt on this. But nevertheless, we want to clearly understand and see what are the expected impacts of your proposal and how these expected impacts are linked with the proposed measures. So I will briefly go through them. I mean, they are quite self-explanatory, so I won't spend much time on this slide. So the first KPI is about the development and implementation of economically viable business models. Then we have a number of companies and value chains involved in business models and business cases. Here we are not requesting a minimum amount of companies to be involved. It is really up to you to come up with something meaningful in size. Then we have the replicable use cases, data evidence on value chain energy use, innovative benchmarking and monitoring systems, improvement of standards, governance, and regulatory frameworks. Here, of course, we are not expecting you to change already these frameworks during the time frame of the project, but nevertheless, we expect you to come up with recommendations and also to establish already a connection with the relevant authorities. And finally, we have primary energy savings, renewable energy generation, and investments in sustainable energy triggered by the project. Okay, I have listed here a number of relevant projects for your reference. I must say that it wasn't an easy task for me to come up with this slide. As you know, this is the first time ever that this topic has been launched. And also in the past, when Horizon 2020 was up and running, we didn't have similar topics, at least under the energy efficiency part of Horizon 2020. Nevertheless, I managed to identify the following 3 projects that are somehow going the same direction as the one pointed out by our topic on value chain. So really moving away from a company-based approach toward a more holistic one. So looking at the whole value chain. And the first project is Impawatt. So it's a project that ended a few months ago in March 2021. And they created a cross-sectoral capacity building program to enhance the energy corporate culture of the company, also through sustainable supply chain initiatives. And they managed also to establish an interesting link and connection with the EU supply chain initiative, for which I advise you to have a look. Then we have the IC project that is targeting SMEs in the cold chain of the food and beverage sector. They have developed a report on life cycle assessment, which is available online, to assess the environmental and economic impacts across the whole cold chain. And again, I advise you to have a look at this report as well. And then finally, we have the E2 driver, which is indeed targeting and addressing SMEs in the automotive supply chain. And they have developed an interesting online tool benchmarking the energy use for the whole automotive supply chain, which is very interesting as well. So with regard the indicative EU contribution and duration, so we do believe that the average EU contribution per project should be around 2 million euros, and the expected project duration should be around 3-4 years. But really, nothing prevents you from requesting a different EU contribution and or a different duration. Okay, so this is already my last slide. So there are some recommendations on how to put forward an excellent proposal. So first of all, really develop a credible work plan. So you must really identify the key tasks that you will have to perform in order to reach the expected objectives, and also make sure that you have enough time to implement them, especially when it comes to the implementation of the business case and the promotion and exploitation of the project's results. Then think already about the sustainability of the project. So think already about what will happen after the project duration and how your solution will fly up on the market. Then indeed involve relevant stakeholders. Again, the focus are large companies and SMEs operating in the same value chain. But again, you might need additional players in order to have this collaboration in place and running. And please also have a look at the impact assessment published by CINEA a few months ago. You might be able to find interesting information on how, for instance, to better link the proposed activities with the expected impacts, on common factors to be used for the calculations, for the assumptions, and for the baselines. You will also find an interesting section on how to quantify the multiple benefits generated from the implementation of the energy efficiency measures. And also, again, recommendations at project level on how, for instance, effectively engage SMEs in the project, for instance, for the pilots. Okay, this is a standard slide with our communication channels for you to keep in touch with us. So thank you very much and good luck with your work. Thank you.